Let's get into it. So, our first review of the day is going to be for the film The Fall Guy. The Fall Guy, which is based on the 1980s TV series there, which starred Lee Majors. Lee Majors, people might remember him. He was the $6 Million Man. They're very kind of big show that he was on there back in the 70s. That show came on, and so this is kind of loosely based on that. Like, I think the only thing that this movie is taking from the show is just the name of the main character, Colt Severs there, who's played by Ryan Gosling in this, who is a stuntman. And this is very close to home for the director of this film, who the director of this film is David Leitch. David Leitch, who was the part of the co-directing team of the first John Wick movie. Then he went on to direct Atomic Blonde, Deadpool 2, Hobbs and Shaw. He also did Bullet Train as well there. David Leitch, his movies, I think are okay. I think they got some really good moments in them. I think they have sometimes some wonky stuff when it comes to the story, and I think that's a little bit continued here. I'll get in more into that. But what is this about? So you have Ryan Gosling. Like I said, he's a famous stuntman. Well, not so famous stuntman, really. As he said, as they say constantly in this movie, nobody cares about the stuntman. It's very underappreciated. You know, you put your body through, all this torture and pain, and you're the one that's doing all the physical stuff. But you have people like the character in this movie, Aaron Taylor Johnson, who plays the famous movie star Tom Ryder, who he's the one that mainly gets all the credit. He's the one that gets to kiss the woman. He's the one that gets his face on the posters, and he's also running around with the lie that he does his own stunts, even though he's got this great stuntman in Ryan Gosling. But after an accident that happens to him, he breaks his back. He gets retired from being a stuntman until he gets pulled back into it by a producer of the film that they're working on called Metal Storm there. And part of the reason he gets pulled back is because the main star of the movie, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Tom Ryder, goes missing. So it's like, hey, he kind of has to go on this mission a little bit in Sydney, Australia, to find, Tom Ryder, Aaron Taylor Johnson. Where is he? Also, kind of, there's a little bit of a murder mystery plot also going on to this as well. And a mix of that, there's also a rom com. I think this movie's more of a rom com than it is an action movie. And part of that, the other half of that rom com is Emily Blunt, who's the director of this fictional film called Metal Storm, which is kind of like a John Carter, Mars plus Dune plus Star Wars type mashup type thing here. So yeah, so that's what we have here. Dusk, what were your thoughts on Metal Storm? I mean, I'm shit. Sorry, I mean, the
Mm.
Fall Guy here.
Well, for what little we see in Metal Storm, it looks all right. Looks like a kind of a blockbuster, or at least a parody of one that they go to, especially with the surprise guest starring at the end of it. As for the Fall Guy, yeah, this does feel more of a romantic comedy with a lot of action in between to kind of spice things up. And for both its parts, I would say Ryan Gosling basically carries the burden for both. Not only has he just really come to his own as an actor as time has gone on, and he's really just improved overall. Uh, he really just carries this just charisma with him, in this, including in this film, from his narration to the way he switches back and forth between confident stuntman to having to do crazy stunts, and then having to be a little emotional at points, and say these sometimes ridiculous lines or situations, and also having to be a bit more comedic as well. He kind of handles it very well overall. And honestly, that's really the biggest draw for this movie is Ryan Gosling himself. I feel like everything else surrounding it isn't exactly uh, carrying the same level of burden that it should be, and because of it, I found it a weaker movie than I was hoping for.
Yeah. So on paper, it seems like I really should love this movie a lot more
Yeah.
than I think I did walking out of it. First of all, I think the movie's a little bit too long. I think this movie's
Hmm.
2 hours and 5 minutes. I think you could trim off 20 minutes for a movie like this, and I think that would have improved it. I think the concept of like the stuntman and paying, homage to stuntmen and tribute to stuntmen, it's a very underappreciated, I think, a job in the film industry, and I think it should be an Oscar category there, like best stunt
Oh yeah.
best stunt team or best stunt coordinator, things like that. I think that should definitely be an Oscar category. They already introduced a new one this past Oscars, like casting directors. They're gonna make that a part of the category, a new category, a part of the Oscars. So I think they should do that with also the stunt team as well. So I like that, and these are kind of the love letters to Hollywood in movies I like. Like when movies do movies about Hollywood, usually it kind of seems like they're jerking themselves off
Hmm.
about how awesome Hollywood is and how awesome it is to make these movies and all these references and everything like that. I think Quentin Tarantino tends to do that a lot in his movies. Like that's part of the reason why I didn't really too much like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's because I just feel like it's just a bunch of like, hey, this old style of Hollywood, and it like, wasn't that kind of cool back then. Here I think there's a lot. I think it has more fun with that in this movie. And David Leitch, being a former stuntman himself, you know what I mean, knows what that's kind of like of being in this position. And Ryan Gosling, I mean, we've seen him do comedy plenty of times. Just recently we saw him last year do Barbie. We also saw him in The Nice Guys, which I think this movie I wish it had some of more of that Nice
Yeah.
Guys DNA to it, and I think the script wise is where it's lacking, where it could, if used a more punch up in the script, have been a little bit more sharper, a little bit more funnier there. I think it worked. I mean, this movie's it's okay funny wise. I chuckled a couple times,
Hmm.
but I think it could have used a stronger punch to things. There. What do you think about that?
No, I'm completely in agreement with you. I think it really did need a punch up in the script. There were some line deliveries that I was liking, but a lot of times it wasn't giving me the bite that I was hoping for. And on paper, I should really love this movie. I really like everything that has to do with stunts, everything that has to do with what that's talked about in the industry, how that goes about, and even the way he talks about himself as in that character. You really do feel that there's a sense of, okay, someone has experienced that, and it's really on screen, and you can see that. It's honestly everything else that really need to be punched up, because together it doesn't quite meld the way that it should. And that's a shame, because all the pieces are here for me to absolutely love this movie. But I think the romantic comedy parts just don't work. I I wasn't a big fan. I didn't feel much with the characters of Colt and Jody. I could feel the affection from Colt, but with Jody, it always felt like with Emily Blunt, it just I couldn't feel that chemistry there. And if you're gonna make a romantic comedy slash action movie, that's you're holding up quite a big part. And if that's not working, then the other part has to be the action scenes. And I think the action scenes are solid enough, but they didn't quite leave me wanting more. It just was like, oh, okay, that's a neat setup, or that's kind of a neat scene, and then they're over real quick, and I was like, oh, okay, and then cut to a new scene, and you're like, oh, okay. It felt like a good sizzle reel for if watching a behind the scenes, if they ever did a behind the scenes of the Fall Guy and showing all the stunt work that went into it, I would actually find far more interesting than what was being presented in the movie.
Yeah, and at the end of the movie, they do show, like, them doing the
Hmm.
stunts, and they show, like a
And that
gag
was really
reel, like
neat.
bloopers and things like that, at the end of them doing the stuff,
Hmm.
so that was cool. I like that. I thought that was pretty good there. Yeah, I mean, that's kinda just where I am. I feel like it's a decent movie. I think it could
Hmm.
have been way better than what it is. And like I said, very talented cast here. You got Ryan Gosling, you got Emily Blunt, Aaron Taylor Johnson, who you're not gonna see much of Aaron Taylor Johnson in this movie because
No.
he is the missing movie star here. But you also have Winston Duke in there, who's the stunt coordinator. You got Hannah Winningham in this, who people might know. She was in Ted Lasso. She was the boss. She was the head of the team there. In that, Stephanie Shu also shows up in a small role in this, which was kind of surprising. Uh, yeah, she
You said
shows
my
up.
baby Weddingham up in there. I love her.
Yeah, she's in here.
Love
Yeah,
her. I'm watching this
For
just
the briefest of moments.
yeah, she's in there quite a bit. I would say she's in there kind of bit there.
is she wearing that shit though? You know what I'm talking about?
No.
Yeah. Oh,
No, she kinda looks like she's from the '80s, when she shows up, like, I don't know, her glasses and her hair, it looks like she's like it's like this shit is set in the '80s or something, I don't know, like, it just looks kinda bad, her kind of, uh, wig there, I don't know, it looks kinda really weird,
thank y'all
uh
for confirming.
but, she's decent, and I think she's good. She has some good moments in here. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if they should have gone like, okay, maybe they should have focused more on the rom-com stuff instead of like this plot with the missing actor and then the murder mystery thing that goes into it. Um, Maybe they should have focused on one or the other, because I think both end up suffering. The connection Emily Blunt and Ryan Gosling, do they make a great couple, and are they paired well together? I think they're fine enough. I think the chemistry's pretty good between them. I think it's more than just like, hey, it's two good looking people, and we're just going to put them together because they're just two good looking people, and that's it. And you're supposed to just instantly feel like they should get together. I think there's more than that. I think they do have some decent chemistry here, and the action sequences, the stunts, which I think is the main thing selling this movie, are the stunts and the action sequences here. I think they're very well done. I think they are very exciting and they are very well done. You might learn some different information also about how kind of the stunt kind of, stunt work kind of is done there in the industry. And we also do have an interview up on our channel, youtube.com, the afternoon tune, where I do interview a stunt man, a guy who worked on Mad Max Fury Road and Warrior, the HBO series there starring Andrew Koji. If people want to check that out, they can do so. Go to the afternoon tomb. I do interview an actual stuntman there, and he talks about the dangers of being a stuntman and how that is high risk. And you do obviously know some people who have died being stunt people. There was that woman, I forgot what movie it was on. I think it was what Terminator, that she lost her arm and then she suffered permanent spinal damage
Yeah.
there. So it is very dangerous there, and people can risk a lot of injuries there if precautions are not taken. And you see that at the beginning of this movie with Ryan Gosling, like, one bad accident can just, that's it, you're done almost there. It can really be very, very serious and almost ruin your career.
Yeah. In fact, that's a main component of the story, and I don't feel that's really addressed too well. Not until the very end, at least with other characters, especially with the Emily Blunt character. Very early on in the movie, she's upset at Ryan Gosling's character because, after suffering a traumatic experience, he didn't maybe just get it together immediately, and it took quite a while. So let me punish him by constantly having him really do really dangerous stunts and
Mm,
injuring the same area where he had that accident because I want to feel better.
mm. Yeah, I see what you're saying there.
That immediately was like, okay, yeah, she's not worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, all those things, and I mentioned with David Leitch movies, like his kind of filmography here. So after he kind of went off from Chad Stahelski there, um, I mean, do you think Chad Stahelski's had the better directing career, or you think David Leitch has had the better directing career?
It's hard to say, man.
Yeah.
Maybe David Leachman. Maybe David
Yeah.
Leach.
So Chad Stahelski, I mean, he went on to do all the other John Wick movies, so he's just mainly done John Wick after.
I enjoyed Violent Night, and Bullet Train was not bad. I liked Nobody quite a lot, and
Yeah.
Atomic Blonde was okay. We'll see how With Love is. This is an upcoming film for next year, but we'll see. I think I say honestly, he's had good bangers consistently, and then when they don't work, at least there's something interesting to say about him.
Yeah. So sometimes with his movies, I feel like there's a wonky third
Yeah.
act. Like Atomic Blonde was kind of like that too. I was like, this movie
Hmm.
should be a lot simpler than what it is or what it's being presented as. Deadpool 2 was kind of like that, where it's kind of
Oh
like
yeah.
it's too much shit going on, too many
Oh yeah.
characters. There's like that. Hobbs and Shaw also had
That's
a
just a
similar.
mess.
Yeah, that's just a mess there. Like, that also has a thing of being too long, and then plus it's like it feels like it's 2 climaxes in that movie of like,
Hmm.
okay, then they go to Hawaii. It's like, "Wait, we already done with this movie. Why
Yeah,
are we going to Hawaii?" Like,
yeah.
wait a second
I
here.
think he's at his best when he's with John Wick or Nobody or Violent Night, where it's a fairly even with Bullet Train to an extent, where it's keep it nice and simple and just let it flow. And I think with the action scenes and the characters, he's able to add a little bit of extra, and that makes him more recognizable, or at least more rewatchable than others. I mean, John Wick is the franchise he started, or at least helped start, and has been executive producer on for the continuing sequels, even though he might not direct them. So he does always have an eye for an action. I think that is here. I just wish this needed to be a simpler plot than what it was.
Yeah, and I
Maybe a
did.
simpler plot because everything that they try to shove in, it kind of suffers.
Yeah. And I think it falls apart a little bit at the third act, and they
Oh
even
yeah.
do they try to do the meta thing of like, "Hey, we got a bad third act," because they mirror the movie that the fictional movie in the movie, and then
Hmm.
also the movie, they kind of mirror that there. And I'm like, yeah, because they at the very end, it's like, okay, what was the end goal here? Let's say you do get away. what was the end goal there, of how you're gonna how are you gonna
Oh
make
yeah, they're
them?
they're pretty much screwed at that point.
Yeah. So I was like, okay. Um, so if you see the movie, you know what I'm talking about. If people,
Mhm.
yeah, if you see it, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah. So for me, I would give it kind of a low tune in around that territory. What about for you?
Yeah, I'm gonna echo equal sentiments. I'd say a low tune in. It's worth
Mm,
seeing it in theater, but you can get a matinee for it. I think that'll suit you just fine.
yeah. Yeah, if you, I mean, I like I said, this is more. I mean, it's got some good action scenes in it, but it's more of a rom com than
Yeah,
it is, I think, an action movie. I think,
yeah,
and maybe it make a great date movie. Take, you get the action there, and you also get the good romance stuff there, so you can have both kind of going on. Like I said, Ryan Gosling. I mean, he's I think a funny guy without trying too hard, which is good.
yeah. He's a
Uh,
natural charisma to him, just a natural cadence.
Yeah. So I think, yeah, you see that in a lot of his work, like The Nice Guys, like with Barbie, yeah, like Crazy Stupid Love. So it's very good. So he does great stuff there. Yeah. Yeah, very much so. So two lowish kind of tune ins for the Fall Guy there. I wish I liked it a little bit more though. I
I
was
know, me too.
yeah, I
I
was
was actually looking forward to this. We when we were talking about our list of movies we were looking forward to this year, this was one of them.
yeah. So yeah, that was our review for the Fall Guy.